When it comes to the hostage deal, I hate it, but I support it. Let me explain why. Hi, this is Joel Rosenberg, founder and editor-in-chief of All Israel News and All Arab News, and I'm in Israel, the hills of Jerusalem behind me. I want to walk you through for a few minutes my rationale. Look, I'm going to start with the things I hate about this deal. I do not like negotiating with terrorists. I don't think that's, it's not something I believe in, but that's what's happening. I don't like that Israel is giving 30 Palestinian terrorist prisoners, murderers, releasing them for every single live hostage that we get back, except for the Israeli women soldiers that would be released, the hostages that are women IDF soldiers that are being held by Hamas in those terror dungeons in Gaza. For every one of them, every one of these soldier women, Israel's giving 50 Palestinian terrorist prisoners their freedom, releasing them. Now, it's not exactly clear as I record this where they're going to be released. Are they actually going to be released back into Gaza? Why would we put terrorists that we captured in Gaza? We'll put them right back there, right? But Israel's made it clear they're not allowing these prisoners, these terrorist prisoners, to go into the Palestinian Authority area in the West Bank, what Israelis call the biblical region of Judea and Samaria. We're not putting them there. Why? Because these are Hamas supporters, and they are going to come together and try to mobilize and overthrow and disrupt and destabilize the Palestinian Authority. That's the last thing we need. We don't need the West Bank further destabilized. We already got enough problems. But Israel could put all these terrorists in Gaza. They could send them to Qatar. That's the Sunni Arab island, Gulf oil-rich little island country in the Middle East that is sort of playing both sides. On the one hand, Qatar is an ally of the United States. On the other hand, it's an ally of the Iranian regime. And Qatar for years, for decades, has hosted Hamas senior leaders in Doha, the Qatar capital. And these folks live in the lap of luxury in these beautiful high-rise luxury apartments. You could send these terrorists there, or there's another option people are talking about, which is Israel will send these released terrorist prisoners to Turkey, since Recep Erdogan wants to be the sultan of the radical Islamist world and sort of reassert the power and the glory of the Ottoman Empire from the pre-Turkey days. I don't know where he's going to put them. I don't want to release any of them. Okay, so that's one of the reasons I hate the deal. I hate negotiating with terrorists. I hate releasing murderers, people that already have blood on their hands. They're already convicted of trying to kill and killing and wounding and maiming and terrorizing radical Islamists. As a radical Islamist, attacking and killing Jews, Israelis. So nobody wants to release these people. I further hate this deal because I don't like the idea that we will do a ceasefire in Gaza and that the Hamas leadership is already saying, we won, we survived. We survived, we did it. We brought down the little Satan, they didn't stop us. They spent 15 months fighting us, but we didn't. I hate giving radical Islamists a propaganda coup. So now you might say, Joel, you just made the case why Israel shouldn't do this. But here's the alternate case. This is why I support the deal. I don't like the deal. I hate the deal. But I believe the time is right to do it. And the reason is because the Israeli government is a small country, and we cannot have a situation where people get captured by demon-possessed Hamas terrorists while they're in their pajamas on a Shabbat, Sabbath, Sunday, Saturday morning, dragged into hell, tortured every single day for 468 plus days, and then just leave them there. If fighting alone was going to get them out, they'd be out. It's been 15 months. And Israel has made huge gains. Please keep this in mind if you're thinking I'm going to criticize Israel for doing this. Why would they do it? I understand the feeling, but let me start with the compassion. There's a humanitarian, compassionate, and I find this from the Bible, a love your neighbor aspect. There are 97 Israelis, Americans, and other foreigners held in those terror dungeons. We don't know how many of those are alive, but we know that several dozen are alive. That we think we know that. So we need to get them out. If just fighting alone was going to get them out, it would have worked. If just diplomacy alone would get them out, if just international pressure on Hamas alone would work, then they'd be out, but they're not out. And so I think it's just compassion. How can the Israeli government say to its own people, we're not going to move every stone, turn every stone over to get our people back? There's a binding social contract. We owe it to these people to get them back. Now, you're saying, but Joel, Israel's going to keep having to fight radical Islamism, including in Gaza, because because you're releasing prisoners and you're giving them a propaganda coup. I get it. Israelis get it. But the polls are overwhelming here. 70 to 75% in every single poll says the Israeli people want a hostage deal, even if it means a temporary ceasefire, even if it means releasing more terror prisoners, that we don't want to do it. We don't want to do it. Of course, we're all opposed to that. But we're willing to do it and take a ceasefire in Gaza, and the risk that we're going to be told that Hamas won and they survived and all the rest, in order to get our people back. Because our people's lives are more valuable than anything else to us. And Israelis are overwhelmed. Israelis don't believe about 70, 75% on almost any issue. So when you have that type of social consensus, it's because there's a social contract. And the Israeli people are saying to the government, look, we get there's a lot of considerations. We've been dealing with this for 15 months, but it's time. It's time to make a deal. I would say there's a few other reasons to make the deal. First, I opposed the Biden offer, the Biden three-stage proposal for a deal back in May of last year. Why did I oppose that? Obviously, Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu opposed it also. More importantly than me, obviously. Why did people oppose that deal? Because at that point, Israel, it really felt like Biden was telling us to surrender. He called it a ceasefire, but he called it a permanent ceasefire. And of course, we would want to get all our hostages back. But think about what the world looked like, what Gaza looked like in May of last year. Ismail Haniyeh, the head of Hamas, was still alive, still living in, high on the hog, as it were, in the lap of luxury in Doha, the capital of Qatar. Alive and well and pumping out radical Islamist jihadist propaganda and pumping out anti-Israel, anti-Semitic propaganda. Ismail Haniyeh, still alive, back last May. Yahya Sinwar, the demonically possessed chief strategist of the October 7th invasion and massacre, pogrom, genocide, he was still alive and fighting and making decisions in Gaza in May of last year, when Biden wanted us to just say, okay, enough is enough, let's just call it quits. Mohammed Deif, the chief military operational guy for Hamas, was still in Gaza, still alive, still running his troops. And maybe Israel by that point had taken out about 40 to 50% of the Hamas fighter terrorist troops. But now we're at about 80 to 85% that we've killed or severely wounded so that they can't come back on the battlefield. Now we've assassinated Ismail Haniyeh. Now we've assassinated Yahya Sinwar. Now we've assassinated Mohammed Deif. Last May, Biden was telling us, don't invade Rafah, the southernmost city in Gaza, where most of the remaining Hamas leaders and terror troops were. Netanyahu listened to Biden and to Harris and respectfully disagreed and sent Israeli forces into Rafah, and we killed Yahya Sinwar there in Rafah, and we killed and captured many, many, many more Hamas terrorists, okay? And captured many weapons and found more tunnels and destroyed them and cleaned them. And so my point is, we're in a very different place than we were. Biden really wanted Israel to surrender in May of last year. That's not where we are. Hamas is nearly destroyed. It's not completely destroyed, don't get me wrong. But Israelis have decided we're willing to keep fighting Hamas forever and we can hunt down all of these terrorists that still remain, even the terrorists that we release. We can do that. We're willing to do that, but we're making a choice. The choice is to get our people back while they're still alive. I support that. Now, you may not, I get that, but I would ask you to show some compassion for the families of these hostages, for the families of all the soldiers that have been fighting to defeat Hamas and Israeli soldiers and get the hostages back, and of course for the hostages themselves. Imagine if it was your husband, wife, mother, father, daughter, son, cousin that was trapped there for 468 days being tortured every single day. Wouldn't you want a strong government to say, all right, we'll make a deal, get all of our people home, get them into recovery, physical, spiritual, emotional recovery, and go live to fight another day? Israel has destroyed enough of Hamas and enough of Hezbollah in the north that right now we feel, okay, these are challenges, but they're not existential threats the way they were. That's what gives Netanyahu the feeling that I can make a deal now. I will say one last thing. If it was Biden pushing Bibi to do it right now alone, Netanyahu would have a hard time because there's been a very contentious relationship between Netanyahu and Joe Biden. Joe Biden has been, he says he loves Israel, but he's been very cruel towards Prime Minister Netanyahu. There's been leaks of all kinds of vulgar language that Biden has used about Netanyahu. Biden has promised weapons and then refused to send them in order to leverage Netanyahu to give up, to surrender. So there's a lot of bad blood there. But even though there's a prickly relationship between Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu, they've had some tensions over the years. But they're allies. They see each other as allies, and they want to work together. And Trump wants Israel to win. But he also wants the hostages home. And so Trump sent his own negotiator to get this job done, Steve Witkoff, working with the Biden team. It was an interesting bipartisan move by Trump. We don't normally see Trump working in a bipartisan fashion, but he did in this. He worked with the Biden team, but it was the Trump team that has moved the dynamic. And it was Trump's language threatening Hamas, repeatedly warning them, giving them ultimatums. There will be all hell to pay, Trump said, by Hamas and its allies if the hostages are not released by January 20th when Trump takes office. So that type of pressure, those type of warnings, and Trump coming back, what I talk about in a different video called the Trump effect, it has had an effect on the Hamas leadership and on other world leaders, evil world leaders. And what I'm saying is Netanyahu has a lot of resistance from some of the far right-wing factions within his own government who are threatening to bolt the government if he says yes. But is Netanyahu really going to never get these hostages back? He wants to get the hostages back. His critics say, you don't really want them back. No, he does want them back. He just doesn't want to surrender. And now he feels like it's not surrendering. Now these are manageable conflicts that he can continue, but he can make the deal and get the hostages back now. And he also, what would be the point of the prime minister of a little country, Israel, telling the new incoming leader of the world's only superpower, the United States, Donald Trump, no, I'm not going to listen to your negotiator. I'm not going to listen to you. I'm not taking this deal. It's a bad deal. It's a horrible deal. I'm not going to do it. Trump is trying to help Israel. And that's what Netanyahu has realized, that this isn't the deal he wants, but the timing is right. The president of the United States coming in, Donald Trump, is the right guy to work with. And there's so much more we can work together if we can get this situation resolved. So, do I like this deal? I do not. I hate this deal. But I support it for these reasons. And you can take whatever position you want. I get that. That's what freedom is. But I want you to understand why I support this deal. It's not the deal. It's the timing to get these hostages out before they're all dead. I hope that's helpful. Please keep praying. Please keep praying. Even when all the hostages are released, praise God, Lord willing, the trauma that they and their families and all Israeli troops, and of course the suffering Palestinians in Gaza and the suffering Palestinians in the West Bank and elsewhere, the suffering is so bad, the trauma is so deep, that there's going to be so much need for emotional, physical, and spiritual recovery. That's another topic for another video, but I wanted to lay that out for you. I want you to understand it, and even if you have strong criticisms of this deal, I just ask you, I don't say don't express them, but I just say, just remember the human element of actual real lives being tortured every single day. I've been in those tunnels. I was there for 3 hours. These folks have been there for 468 plus days. They have to come out, and now is the moment. This is Joel Rosenberg, just outside the Judean hills, just outside of Jerusalem, for All Israel News. God bless you.